Okay, this is a video of me explaining what can happen or what will or might happen during your Mercury mahadasha. Your Mercury mahadasha is a 17-year time period. And yeah, let's start off with stating what are some of the things that the planet Mercury is associated with. Well, Mercury, it rules, as y'all already know or should already know, it rules Gemini and Virgo. Gemini originally rules the third house, and Virgo originally rules the sixth house. And Mercury is like a significator and karga of communication and like younger siblings and the nervous system. And the sixth house, which contains originally ruled by Virgo, it's also associated with the intestines. So you might see all these things be connected and associated with Mercury. Easy. One of the things you can say about Mercury during your Mercury mahadasha is that you are someone who become very communicative. Obviously, you might become very communicative and chatty, and might want to write more and blog more or vlog more during your Mercury mahadasha. During your Mercury mahadasha, depending on how your Mercury is placed in your chart, you might be someone who might become subjected to experiencing nervous disorders. You know, like illnesses and problems with your nervous system might be something that might be a problem during your Mercury mahadasha. Another thing that you might experience during your Mercury mahadasha is that you could well, what else could I say? This is what I'll say. Mercury is very chameleon-like, because mythologically, from a Vedic sidereal perspective, Mercury is the offspring of Moon. And in a real life perspective, as I've said in many other videos before, if you look up a real photo of the Moon and Mercury, they sort of look very identical. So they're very much similar. They're very fast paced and fast moving and stuff. And a lot of the characteristics and traits of what a Mercury in Moon will do in your chart is greatly and heavily influenced based upon the sign and nakshatra and aspects that are being made with the Mercury or the Moon. And Mercury in a person's chart can be associated with mimicry, you know, like being the ability to like copy somebody, impersonate somebody, maybe memorize something, sort of like a comedian, sort of like an actor. So, you know, during your Mercury mahadasha, you might, depending on, you know, how it's placed in your chart and your third lord and all that good stuff, you might get more interested in like acting, or maybe become more comedic. Why do I say this? Because if you count 3 places from the third house, you end up with the fifth house. The third house is written communication, and it's the nervous system, it's the hands, and just writing and stuff. And if you're an actor or if you're a comedian, you gotta memorize lines, or you might write down lines, and you might act, you might move, you might impersonate. You might act out your lines and add your own charisma and charm as an actor or a comedian if you're playing out a script or a skit or whatever. And your nervous system transmits messages throughout your body. So the third house is very much sort of very important when it comes to like your ability to like move. There's movement overall, or your ability to like copy and mimic somebody. And the fifth house is associated with like hobbies and skills and talents and just creativity in general. So Mercury might make you, like I said, during your mahadasha, like a comedian, or very witty and communicative and chatty and stuff. Or since Mercury is like a natural significator of like learning and students and maybe teachers, but a different type of teacher than Jupiter, of course, but it could be maybe associated with teaching. And I just told you how Mercury is very chameleon-like, and it gets its influence from everybody else. One of the things that we can therefore say about someone doing their Mercury mahadasha is that they can become easily influenced during this 17-year time period. You know, if Mercury gets a lot of his traits from the sign and the nakshatra and people is aspecting it, then you too will sort of behave like Mercury, and you will become very and easily influenced. Mercury, you know, is the fastest moving graha. After the moon, it's the fastest moving planet, and it's just associated with your practical, logical intelligence, which is why Mercury originally rules the sixth house that contains Virgo. And the sixth house represents the everyday obstacles and struggles and health and debts that we got to deal with on an everyday basis, because you need a sharp intellectual mind to be able to deal with the day-to-day issues and problems that we have to face on a day-to-day basis as a human. So with Mercury being the planet of your mahadasha, based upon who you're around and whatever the hell you might be dealing with in your life, you might begin to use your intelligence, your problem-solving capabilities, your communicative and mimicry abilities in relation to whatever the hell you might be going through right now. So if you maybe are around a bunch of people who are, I don't know, it could just be anything. I can't even come up with a good practical analysis. If you're maybe around a bunch of people who are talking about women ain't shit, like let's say you're a guy, you got your heart broke, shit ain't go right with you and that woman, and you're just around a bunch of other motherfuckers, a bunch of other guys who are talking about how they dogging women out, slutting them out or whatever. You might subconsciously, doing your Mercury mahadasha, you're getting influenced by your surroundings. So now what you're communicating about, and maybe what you might want to research and gain knowledge on, is what you might want to do research on and gain knowledge on is like, are what the people saying around me, is it true, is it accurate? So you might go, motherfucker, look up Kevin Samuel interviews and videos, or dating shows and dating videos or whatever. You might want to direct your intelligence, your research ability, your communication towards these type of things, so that you can add to that conversation, so you can add to your surroundings, you know. Or maybe if you're around a bunch of people who are talking about the stocks, and it's like, man, I don't know nothing about the stock market, but let me do a little bit of research. So you might go and look up YouTube videos and buy classes and stuff and invest a little bit of money in this stock and that stock, and then you might come back and bring the little bit of information that you gained back to the circle and see if it's for you or not. See, Mercury becomes very curious. It becomes easily influenced. It's going to try things. It's going to venture out and do things, and you can just be easily influenced by what you want to research and what you want to communicate based upon your environment during your Mercury mahadasha. What else could you deal with during the Mercury mahadasha? I know Mercury is also associated with the nose and the nostrils and the lungs. So maybe if your Mercury is under negative influences in your birth chart or the course of several other divisional charts, maybe you might deal with things like bronchitis or asthma, lung cancer, or whatever. Who knows? Like I said, illnesses and ailments of the nose and the lungs and the nervous system and your hands could be, or maybe even the intestines, since Mercury rules Virgo, and Virgo is in the 6th house, and all they are connected with the intestines and stuff. Issues with those things could be prominent if your Mercury is under negative malefic influences during this time period. But if it's not, then you might not have to worry about it too much. Since Mercury rules and deals with the hands, you might want to develop skills and traits that are really particular with the hands. So who knows, you might develop, like I said, skills and traits that are in relation with your hands. So now, as I do with all my other videos with the mahadashas, to see specifically how the Mercury mahadasha will affect you, of course, you gotta look at your chart from many different ascendants. First, the birth ascendant. See what house does Mercury fall into. Look at the sign and nakshatra and house placement and see what is aspect in the Mercury, and just see what the hell's going on. That house and area and nakshatra will be of prime importance. Look at the things from the moon chart. Take what sign your moon is in your birth chart and make that the ascendant, and see where does Mercury go at. Maybe look at things from the sun chart. Make sun the ascendant. See where does Mercury fall at from that being your ascendant. And then you want to do dasha lagna. You got to look at your chart from dasha lagna, because with any mahadasha you're running, that planet is taking a huge predominance over your life. So doing your Mercury mahadasha, just look at things from dasha lagna. Make Mercury your ascendant. See what planets and yogas and planetary combinations are being formed when you make Mercury your ascendant during this time. Yeah, that's all I have to really say in general. There might be like this also, like this childlike immaturity and naiveness when doing your Mercury mahadasha, especially when you learn like the mythological lore associated with Mercury. Mercury is the child of Jupiter. I mean, Mercury is the son of Moon, because Jupiter's wife, Tara, had an affair with the Moon, and she got pregnant by the Moon, and Mercury was born. Jupiter is the stepfather, though. Jupiter cursed Mercury to sort of be like confused sexually, you know. He cursed Mercury to be born with like two genitals, that of a man and that of a woman. And then I read that there was a time where after Mercury leaves home, because, you know, he didn't get along with the stepfather, Jupiter, and all that good stuff, he encounters a woman who desires to have sex with him. And then he ends up turning down the sex, because seeing how his family was broken apart, seeing how he was, you know, a kid from, you know, Moon, outside of, I don't know, he's seen how his origin of him being born sort of split apart a family and all that stuff, and therefore he wanted to be more cautious and wise with who he just have sex with and all that stuff. Whoever he denied ends up cursing him to be, like, from what I read, a eunuch. And a eunuch is sort of like someone who either has like, it's like a man who is like castrated of his testicles, so therefore he can't reproduce. He doesn't really have no sex drive. He's unable to really fuck and reproduce at all and shit. So Mercury was cursed to be a eunuch, from what I've read, by the woman who he denied to have sex with. So think about this. Let's humanize this story for a second. Let's say that you was born in this world, and you was raised in a household by your mother and the father, who you think is your father, but it isn't your father. Your stepfather hates you, and your stepfather maybe hates you because you was born into this world with two sexual organs, that of a man and that of a woman. So he hates you because you're not his kid. You're a product of an affair. And two, he's disgusted with you even more because you got two different sexual organs. So he either kicks you out, or y'all just don't get along and you run away. And someone wants to have sex with you. You deny them. And then for whatever reason, after they deny you, you gotta go fucking get your testicles removed, or you lose your sex drive. So now you're just like this gender confused person, or a person who is unable to have sex, and a person who comes from a broken household, and you're just, you know, confused, you know. If you're someone who maybe is like, is like oblivious to sex, or just doesn't have sex, and just like connecting with people and talking to people and stuff, well then, I don't know. You're sort of, in a sense, pure. You're sort of, in a sense, childlike and innocent, because you haven't made connections. You haven't made and built intimate connections with people in a sense that most people do. You haven't really had sex or anything at all with people. You might not even be sure who and what you're attracted to, which makes sense why Mercury is a mutable, it rules mutable signs, and the symbol for Mercury is like that of like a, and the symbol of Mercury could sort of be easy switched to like Venus or Mars. And I believe like the consort of Mercury, when I look up Mercury, whose name is known as Buddha, in Hindu or whatever, in Vedic astrology, his spouse, his partner, is a deity who can change its gender and sex at will too. So who knows, depending on how your Mercury is placed in your chart, you just might take more of this naive, childlike, innocent, lighthearted persona. But yeah, that's all I have to say about what you can expect doing your Mercury mahadasha. I hope this gave you great insight and clarity of what you can expect doing your Mercury mahadasha, and see you when I make my next video.